Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews.
Carrotia, am I saying that right? Carrotia is a board game about moving rabbits around the board to collect carrots, and you want to keep the birds away from them. I really, really hate when I'm put into a situation where I need to do this, but this is one of the most awful games I've ever played. It's unfortunate that I read some readings on it, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the designer had something else in place, and then the publishers put something else out, and the publishers really dropped the ball on this. I don't know where that story actually lands, but somebody dropped the ball on this. This is, again, it makes no sense. The rules are awful. Dare I say the game is unplayable by the rules. The graphic design isn't great. The birds moving around are way too powerful. When you're moving around the board, it's like you really got to get something because those birds are going to take things over. I assume, based on the rules, that I'm playing it right, but I don't know. The rules are awful. I tried to make heads or tails of it, and I did the best that I could. The game is bizarrely boring. The tiling part is pretty interesting, but you want to make these paths. But because you're drawing tiles, I might get if I had infinite amount of time, this is a real-time game in this part of the game. Sometimes you just can't make a pathway that makes sense or that works. Especially when we're not allowed to talk and we're timed and there isn't a lot of time, so you got to really throw these things down and you can't move them around. Yes, you can build on top of them, but you're quickly going to run out, at least in the first couple rounds, of not only time, but tiles to place. And based on what you draw, it may not even make sense. And then you're hamstrung in the second half of the game. That isn't exactly fun to me. And then the part where you're moving around, there was a lot of like, okay, I moved once, maybe twice before the birds got everything. Then there's nothing on the board. Now I'm just racing for the exit, hoping I don't, quote unquote, die or lose everything before I get there. Very bizarre game. I don't feel like it worked. I don't feel like somebody read the rules, played the game, and gave any feedback on it. I feel like there was a game maybe in somebody's head, because, gosh, I want to assume that the game worked on some level. Now, I'm in the minority, I think. I think a lot of people, or more people, kind of like this game. It wasn't a great hit, but I think a lot more people like it. Maybe they've house ruled it. Maybe they understood the rules better than me. Maybe they like this type of game better. I just didn't feel like it worked. It's one of the worst games I've ever played, and there isn't a lot positive to say about the experience that I had with this. And it was one I was kind of excited to play. I thought it was more of a kid's game. It really isn't. Things move too fast. It's too frustrating. And the rules aren't clear enough for any child to sit down and play this. Absolute miss. Purge for us. Here is Carrotia, which is in a nice little box. I think the box art is very pleasing. You're going to open it up. You're going to get these tiles. These will be the different labyrinth tiles that you have. And these are very thick and nice. You're going to get some sand timers. Doesn't tell you which ones are 30, 60, or 90. Maybe you get eyeballed. I tend to use just my phone instead. You're going to get a number of tokens in here. The dice are going to come for the different colors of birds. It's really difficult to tell what's left, right, up, and down. You're going to get a wooden bunny that's nice. And some of these tiles, you can tell here, like some of these just seem like they're misprinted here. I don't know if they are or not. And you're going to have a bunch of tiles in here. These are going to be a little bit thinner. In particular, your quest cards and your character cards are going to be very thin. These feel almost paper thin and not very good quality, but luckily you don't handle them all that well. That's pretty much the components. It's a meh at best. Some are better than others. The bunny is cute. The dice are okay, I guess. So here's the rule book. You get the goal of the game, so picture of the components, an overview, and setup. Setup is where the game starts to become a mess. Winning the game and losing the game, that's pretty clear on how you're going to do that. And the rest of this will kind of walk you through. But here is like how to play round 1. Then it tells you a little bit about round 2 and a little bit about round 3. And then the characters and the birds and all the powers are back here. This right here needed a player aid, otherwise you have to have this out all the time. This rulebook is horrendous. You will be making guesses on how to play throughout the game. But I assure you, I played the game based on these rules, and the game doesn't really play that well. This is a horrific rulebook. It looked like, honestly, it felt like somebody hadn't played the game before that wrote this. It's horrendous, and you will not have very good luck playing the game with this, and you have to make leaps while you're playing. So each player will get a number of these labyrinth tiles based on the number of players. And then what players are going to do is they're going to take it, whether it's the first, second, or third round, and flip over the timer for 30, 60, or 90 seconds. Each player will play a tile down, and the next player can play a tile, the next player can play a tile, etc., until you built the board size that you need to play. Now, there may be mistakes in what you're building because you don't have the tiles to play. And you can see, well, what did I do here? It just doesn't come together. Now, you're going to have 3 quests, because you're going to have 3 rounds. The first quest is always going to be a 3x3 grid, as you can see there. And then in quest 2, you're going to have a little bit larger of a grid here, with more carrots and more birds. And then finally in quest 3, you're going to have one of these randomized that will be even larger. So each round you're going to be adding to this. I'm just going to show you the first round because the second and third round work exactly the same. Now, when the timer is up, you will then take a look at what you have here, and you will put out a bird on that spot, and you will have carrots based on the number here. So I'm going to put a 1 there, a 1 there, and a 3 here. Now, because there are broken paths in this spot, I can put an extra bird randomly, random bird, anywhere I want on the board, and I could theoretically change 3 of these. From my understanding, I think it means swap them out, move them around, etc. But that's kind of what you can do. But you can see some of these I couldn't even get to before. Now, this will also tell you where the rabbit comes in and where he exits. So I'll put the rabbit right here, and he exits and enters in these locations. So each turn, keep in mind there are a number of characters, powers that the players can grab at the beginning of the game. So you can do different things. So like, I'll just take the clown here. It says send a bird to the entry point. So you utilize that power whenever you want. So on your turn, you can move the bunny 1 space. And if you land on a carrot, you're able to keep this. It'll be put into a supply for all players. You need a certain number of these in order to win the game. After 3 rounds, if you don't meet that number, you will lose. Then you have these flipped over. It tells you what color. So in this case, we have red and blue. So you take the red and blue dice and you roll them, and you'll do whatever it says. So in this case, it says blue would go to the right, which there's nowhere for them to go. And then you will say this one says the red guy will go down. So he'll go down 1 spot. The next player can move the bunny rabbit on 1 more space. And then you roll the dice again to move these guys. This one says he will move down. And this one says he will move to any carrot. On the back of the rule book, it will tell you what happens every time a bird lands on a carrot or on the rabbit. Every different type of bird will react differently. So what you're trying to do with this guy is get to the exit. If you get to the exit in a number of turns, each round requires a number of turns, then you keep the carrots that you were able to obtain, and hopefully by the end of the 3rd round you have enough. You can obviously see it can be blocked off. You're not allowed to go backwards, so sometimes you can just get stuck here, and there's absolutely nothing you can do unless you have a power. Like this power sends a bird back to the entry point, which would be here. That could be kind of helpful, and so use once per round. But unless you have a couple of these characters that let you move, or move backwards, or move around the board, it's very difficult to be able to finish some of these boards off if you make mistakes like we did here. Well, and that's how you play the game. Who should buy this game? Really nobody. I can't imagine somebody wanting to play this game. If you really want like a real-time game, and you have the tile laying in it, and that sounds very interesting, this will accomplish that for you. But anything short of that, I just don't feel like the rules, unless you're okay going online and working on a rule set and trying to find where the game is at, that may be appealing to you. The game is cute. It has a lot of expansions. I don't know where they came from. I can't imagine it selling enough where you would have a lot of expansions for this, but they do exist. Not for us. Purge.